We are about to mention 10 most notorious prisons in America. If you've never heard of some of these places, you're not alone. By the end of this video, you'll understand why most people don't talk about them. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. 10. USP Marion, Illinois. In 1963, the U.S. government needed a replacement for a prison that was being shut down. That prison was Alcatraz. Marion, Illinois was chosen. And for years it was simply a high-security federal prison. Then came October 22nd, 1983. In a single day, just hours apart, 2 correctional officers were stabbed to death inside Marion's walls. 2 separate attacks, 2 separate victims. By members of the same prison gang, the Aryan Brotherhood? The government's response was immediate and permanent. Marion went into total lockdown and stayed there for 23 years. Every inmate, every day, locked in their cell for 23 hours. No group meals, no shared space, nothing. This was America's first ever supermax, and it would inspire something even darker. 9. Rikers Island, New York City, New York. Rikers Island sits in the middle of the East River in New York City. You've probably driven past it without even knowing. It's not technically a prison. It's a jail, meaning most of the people inside have not been convicted of anything. On any given day, about 80% of people held at Rikers are there simply because they couldn't afford bail. One of them was a teenager named Khalif Browder. He was 16 years old. Accused of stealing a backpack, he couldn't pay bail, so he waited inside Rikers for 3 years. No trial, no conviction. He came home in 2013. He never recovered. He took his own life 2 years later. His story changed laws in New York, but Rikers is still open. 8. Louisiana State Penitentiary, Angola, Louisiana. Before it was a prison, it was a plantation. The land was called Angola, named after the African country where many of the enslaved people who worked it were taken from. After the Civil War, it became a prison farm, and for over a century, inmates, most of them black, worked the fields under armed guard, picking crops in the Louisiana heat. Today, Angola covers 18,000 acres. That's bigger than Manhattan. It holds 5,000 men, all maximum security. Louisiana's death row is here. The execution chamber is here. For years, Angola held 3 men in solitary confinement for over 4 decades each. They became known around the world as the Angola Three. 1 died inside. The others were eventually released after 40 years in isolation. 7. USP Leavenworth, Kansas, built in 1906. Leavenworth is one of the oldest federal prisons still standing in America. The dome, the stone walls, the towers. It looks exactly like what you picture when someone says federal prison. It was designed that way on purpose to send a message, and the message worked. Gangsters, fraudsters, and criminals of every kind passed through those gates. Machine Gun Kelly, Bugs Moran, even NFL quarterback Michael Vick served time here after his dog-fighting conviction in 2007. Leavenworth is still operating today. 6. Folsom State Prison, Folsom, California. Folsom opened in 1880. It was the first prison in America to have electricity. But most people don't know Folsom because of its history. They know it because of a song. On January 13, 1968, Johnny Cash walked into Folsom State Prison and performed a live concert for the inmates. The recording became one of the most famous live albums in music history. I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. He sang that line staring directly at the prisoners, men who actually had. The crowd went wild. 5. Attica Correctional Facility, Attica, New York. Here's what life looked like inside Attica in 1971. 1 shower per week, 1 roll of toilet paper per month. Locked in a 6 by 9 foot cell for up to 16 hours a day. Paid 20 cents an hour for prison labor. On September 9, 1971, over 1,200 inmates had had enough. They seized control of the prison. They took 42 staff members hostage. They organized. They elected representatives. They wrote a list of 28 demands: better food, better medical care, basic human dignity. For 4 days, the world watched. Then Governor Nelson Rockefeller made a decision. He refused to come to Attica, refused to negotiate further, and ordered state police to take the prison back by force. On September 13th, helicopters dropped tear gas into the yard. Over 1,000 officers stormed in. Nearly 3,000 rounds were fired into the smoke. When it was over, 43 people were dead, 29 inmates, and 10 hostages. Here's the part nobody talks about. Prison officials went to the press and told them the inmates had slashed the hostages' throats. It was a lie. The autopsies confirmed within 24 hours that every single hostage had been killed by police gunfire. To this day, the Attica uprising remains the deadliest prison riot in American history. Drop in the comments which of these prisons shocked you most so far. We still have 4 more to go. 4. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. When Eastern State Penitentiary opened in 1829, it was the most expensive building in America. Each cell had its own toilet, running water, heat, and a skylight. Prisoners never shared a space with anyone, but this wasn't kindness. The belief was that total silence and total isolation would cause criminals to think so deeply about their sins that they would reform themselves. Instead, it drove many of them insane. The model was so influential that over 300 prisons worldwide copied it. Al Capone was held here, before Alcatraz. His cell was reportedly decorated with furniture, paintings, and a radio. Even in prison, Al Capone was Al Capone. Eastern State closed in 1971. Today, it's a museum. Visitors walk through the crumbling cell blocks, and some report hearing things they can't explain. 3. San Quentin, Marin County, California. San Quentin is California's oldest prison, opened in 1852, before California was even a full state for 2 years. For much of its history, it held the largest male death row population in the United States. At its peak, over 700 men sat waiting to die inside San Quentin, the gas chamber, the lethal injection table. Executions carried out for over a century. But San Quentin is also strange in another way. It has a newspaper, written and run by inmates. It has rehabilitation programs, coding classes, and college courses inside the walls. Johnny Cash performed here too, in 1969. In the audience that day was a young inmate named Merle Haggard, serving time for burglary. He watched Cash perform, decided he wanted to be a musician, got out, and became one of the greatest country artists who ever lived. 2. Alcatraz, San Francisco Bay, California. The island sits 1.5 miles from shore. The water between it and San Francisco is some of the coldest and most dangerous in the world. Strong currents, unpredictable tides, temperatures that could kill a person in minutes. That was the point. Alcatraz opened as a federal penitentiary in 1934 and was immediately home to America's most dangerous criminals. Al Capone arrived the same year. Machine Gun Kelly, the Birdman. In 29 years, 36 men attempted to escape in 14 separate attempts. 23 were caught, 6 were shot and killed, 2 drowned, and 5 were never found. In June 1962, 3 inmates, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, vanished. They left behind dummy heads made of soap, hair, and paint propped up in their beds. By the time guards noticed, they were gone. The FBI closed the case in 1979, officially ruling they drowned. But in 2013, a letter surfaced, allegedly written by one of the Anglin brothers, claiming they survived. The FBI has never confirmed it. They've never ruled it out. Alcatraz closed in 1963. It's now one of San Francisco's most visited tourist attractions. Over 1 million people walk through those cells every year. 1. ADX Florence, Florence, Colorado. This is where the story of American prisons ends up. Built in 1994, directly inspired by the 1983 murders at Marion, ADX Florence is the only Level 6 Supermax in the United States. there has never been a successful escape. Each cell is made almost entirely of poured concrete. There is a concrete bed, a concrete stool, a concrete desk, a toilet, a sink, a shower built directly into the cell, a small window placed specifically so an inmate can see only sky, no landmark, no reference point, no way to know where they are. Inmates spend 22 to 23 hours a day alone in that room. The people inside ADX Florence include some of the most dangerous individuals on Earth, minus 9/11's conspirators, cartel bosses, domestic terrorists. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who escaped from 2 maximum security prisons in Mexico, is here. He has not escaped. One inmate sued the federal government, arguing that the conditions at ADX Florence were so psychologically damaging they constituted cruel and unusual punishment. The case was settled out of court. The prison remains open. There are currently 340 men inside, and for most of them they will never leave. 10 prisons. 10 different versions of what it means to take away a person's freedom. Some of these places changed laws. Some sparked revolutions. Some still hold secrets no one has fully explained. If this documentary kept you watching, subscribe. We cover the stories that don't make the front page. And share this with someone who needs to know.